Have you ever found yourself thinking, "I'll really start living once I retire"? This common thought hides one of today's biggest traps. From a young age, we're conditioned to believe life follows a strict timeline: study, work, save money, and only then, much later, will happiness arrive. But what if I told you that promise is misleading? While you wait for the perfect moment to truly live, your real life quietly slips away. This message invites you to challenge the invisible script we all follow without noticing. Get ready to explore why so many reach the end of their lives feeling like they never truly lived, and how you can break free from this cycle before it is too late. Imagine your life is a movie, but you are not the star. You read just an extra waiting in the background for your turn to shine. This is the reality for millions living by society's unspoken rules, told when happiness is allowed. After graduating, landing a stable job, buying a home, having kids, or retiring. The problem? That later never really comes. After college, you need to work to pay bills. After getting a job, you have to work even harder to keep it. When you buy the house, you need to pay for it for decades. When you have children, you need to raise them. And when you finally retire, you discover that you forgot who you really are. Think about your own life. How many times have you postponed a dream, an important conversation, a trip, a hobby, because it wasn't the right time? How many times have you said, "when I have time" or "when I have money"? This is the trap of the invisible script. It convinces us that there's a perfect moment in the future while the present slips through our hands like sand. Society sells this idea as if it were wisdom. Be responsible, work hard, make sacrifices now to reap the rewards later. But look at the people around you. How many of them actually reaped those rewards? How many reached retirement and discovered they had lost the ability to dream, to be surprised, to feel pleasure in small things? The invisible script is cruel because it makes us believe that postponing life is a virtue, that whoever lives in the present is irresponsible, that pleasure must be earned through suffering. But the truth is, there's no guarantee that the future will be better than the present. There's only the certainty that while we wait for it, we're losing the only life we have. Søren Kierkegaard, one of the fathers of existential thought, had a deep insight about how we live false lives. He talked about people who spend their entire existence playing a role, like actors who forgot they're on stage. Have you ever felt this? That sensation that you're living someone else's life, following expectations that aren't yours? Kierkegaard called this despair. Not the dramatic despair we see in movies, but a silent, everyday despair. It's the despair of those who wake up every day to live a life they didn't choose, who go to work at something they don't love, who maintain empty relationships, who postpone their true desires because it's not practical. Think about that family argument where you swallowed the words you really wanted to say, or that job where you smile and agree even knowing you're wasting your talents, or that relationship where you pretend to be someone you're not to keep the peace. All these moments are examples of what Kierkegaard called inauthentic life. The trap of "I'll live later" is especially cruel because it makes us believe we're being responsible by denying our truest impulses. After I get professionally stable, then I'll study art. After the children grow up, then I'll take care of myself. After I retire, then I'll travel the world. But why not now? Why always later? The philosopher realized that many people die without ever having lived authentically. They reach the end of life like characters in a play they never really understood. They spend decades trying to be who they think they should be instead of discovering who they really are. The painful truth is that you might be living someone else's life right at this moment. You might be following a script written by your parents, by society, by circumstances, by anyone but you. And every day you spend postponing your authenticity, you move a little further away from who you could have been. Our culture has a sick obsession with suffering. Notice how we praise those who work until late hours, who never take vacations, who constantly sacrifice themselves for family or company. We say these people are dedicated, responsible, admirable, but we rarely question whether they're happy. There's an invisible morality that teaches us from early on, pleasure must be earned through suffering. If you're having fun, you should be working. If you're relaxing, you should be producing. If you're taking care of yourself, you're being selfish. This perverse logic turns life into a constant accountability with an imaginary creditor. Think about the last time you did something just because you enjoyed it, without any practical justification. Hard to remember, isn't it? Because whenever the opportunity for genuine pleasure arises, an inner voice whispers, "Shouldn't you be doing something more productive?" This voice is the result of years of conditioning that taught us to fear our own happiness. Epicurus, the Greek philosopher who lived more than 2,000 years ago, already knew something we've completely forgotten. Pleasure isn't the enemy of wisdom. It's its most natural expression. He wasn't talking about excessive or self-destructive pleasures, but the simple capacity to appreciate a sunset, an interesting conversation, a moment of silence without feeling guilty about it. How many people do you know who feel guilty about taking a Sunday off? Who can't enjoy vacations because they keep thinking about work? Who mentally punish themselves for any moment of spontaneous joy? This guilt isn't natural. It's learned. And it can be unlearned. The morality of sacrifice has convinced us that there's something noble about being unhappy. That whoever suffers more is more virtuous. That pleasure is dangerous, irresponsible, superficial. But look around you. The most bitter, most critical, most destructive people are precisely those who never allowed themselves to be genuinely happy. Suffering doesn't make us better, just more frightened. Albert Camus wrote about a man condemned to push an immense stone up a mountain. But every time he reached the top, the stone would roll back down and he had to start over eternally. This image from the myth of Sisyphus is the perfect metaphor for how many of us live, repeating the same actions every day without questioning the meaning, just hoping that one day it will all make sense. Routine can be comforting, but it can also be an invisible prison. You wake up at the same time, drink the same coffee, take the same transportation, do the same work, come home, watch the same programs, and go to sleep to repeat everything the next day. Where are you in this sequence? Where is your choice, your spontaneity, your life? Camus realized that many people use routine as anesthesia against existential emptiness. It's easier not to think, not to question, not to feel when you're too busy fulfilling obligations. Routine protects us from confronting uncomfortable questions. Why am I doing this? Does this make me happy? Is this how I want to spend my days? Think about those moments of forced silence in traffic, in the shower before sleeping when your mind has no distraction, and you feel a tightness in your chest, a restlessness you can't name. This discomfort is your consciousness trying to alert you. You're living on autopilot, but there's still time to wake up. The absurd for Camus isn't in not having answers to everything. The absurd is in pretending that answers exist, and that they'll come in the future as long as you keep following the script. When I retire, then I'll understand the meaning of life. But meaning isn't waiting for you in the future. It needs to be created in the present. Routine becomes dangerous when it stops being a choice and becomes an escape. When you realize you're living like a robot, repeating patterns without consciousness, it's time to stop and ask, who's in control of my life? Is it me or the circumstances? Because while you wait for life to happen after retirement, it's happening now with you or without you. What do you do for a living?
Notice how this question is almost always answered with, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher. I work at a company that our identity has become completely confused with our productive function. But what if I asked, who are you when you're not working? This question scares many people because it reveals an uncomfortable truth. Many of us don't know who we are beyond our professional role. We spend so much time being employees, bosses, service providers that we forget to be people. And when retirement comes, that long-awaited moment, many discover they don't know what to do with freedom. I know stories of people who worked their entire lives waiting to retire, and when they finally stopped, they fell into deep depression. They didn't know how to fill the hours that were once occupied by work. They no longer knew how to talk about other subjects. They had no hobbies, passions, curiosities that weren't connected to their profession. Work can be many things: source of income, purpose, social identity. But when it becomes the only source of meaning in life, it becomes a trap. You become hostage to something that can end at any moment. A layoff, An illness, an economic crisis, or simply reaching the age to stop. Think about your weekends. Can you truly enjoy them? Or do you get anxious thinking about Monday? When you're on vacation, can you really relax? Or do you feel like you're wasting time? These reactions reveal how much our identity is imprisoned in the productive role. Freedom scares because it demands choices. At work, your hours are filled, your tasks are defined, your role is clear. In freedom, you need to decide what to do, who to be, how to fill time. And many of us never learned to make these choices because we always had bosses, schedules, external goals telling us what to do. The fear of retirement, therefore, isn't just fear of lack of money. It's fear of lack of identity. It's the terror of discovering that you don't know who you are when you're not producing anything for anyone. Retirement has become the great myth of our era. The promise that after decades of sacrifice, you'll finally have time and freedom to be happy. But look at the retired people around you. How many of them seem truly fulfilled? How many discovered this promised happiness? The myth of perfect retirement is sold like a product. Work hard now, save money, endure whatever comes, because in the end, you'll be rewarded with golden years of peace and pleasure. But reality is quite different. Many retirees discover they arrived at the promised destination without knowing what to do there. Some become bitter, constantly complaining about the world that's not like it used to be. Others get depressed, feeling useless and discarded by society. Some develop obsessions with health, with news, with their children's problems to fill the void that work left behind. Few actually manage to flourish in this new phase. The problem isn't retirement itself, but the illusion that it will magically solve the problems you didn't face during your active life. If you spent decades postponing your dreams, not developing personal interests, not cultivating genuine relationships, not exploring who you are beyond work, why would these elements magically appear after you stop working? Worse yet, many reach retirement with bodies and minds tired from decades of neglect. They spent their health to gather money, and now want to spend money to recover their health. They sacrificed relationships in the name of career, and now feel alone. They ignored their passions for so long they don't even remember what they really enjoyed doing. Retirement as consolation is a cruel lie. It makes us accept mediocre lives in the present with the promise of future happiness. But happiness isn't a prize you win for having suffered. It's a skill you develop by practicing every day. And if you don't know how to be happy at 30, 40, 50 years old, why would you know how at 70? Kierkegaard asked a disturbing question. What does it mean to exist? And one of the most honest answers he found was to exist is to choose at each moment who you want to be. But how many of those choices do you really make during a normal workday? You wake up with the alarm clock. Company's choice. You go to work at the determined time. Company's choice. You do the tasks they assigned. Company's choice. You have lunch in the allowed time. Company's choice. You go back to work. Company's choice. You leave at the scheduled time. Company's choice. Where are your choices in this sequence? The philosopher realized that when we sell our time, we're selling our life. It's not just about trading hours for money. It's about giving up the right to decide how to use the only thing that's truly yours, your conscious existence. Each hour sold is an hour where you don't choose, don't create, don't discover who you could be. Of course, we all need to work to live. But there's a difference between working to live and living to work. Between using work as a means and transforming it into an end. Between keeping your identity independent of your profession and completely confusing who you are with what you do. Think about what happens when you're sick and can't work. Besides financial worry, do you feel a strange emptiness, as if you didn't know what to do with yourself? This sensation reveals how much your life has become dependent on external structures. You outsourced your choices for so long that you lost the muscle of autonomy. Kierkegaard warned about this. When you live based on contracts, goals, external expectations, you stop being the author of your own life and become a character in others' lives. Your boss decides your schedule, the company decides your priorities, the market decides your value. Where did your freedom of choice go? The time you sell doesn't come back, and each day that passes without exercising your capacity to choose who to be, you move a little further away from the person you could have been. The question isn't whether you should stop working, but whether you remember who you are when you're not working. Epicurus lived more than 2,000 years ago, but his wisdom about pleasure and the present is more relevant today than ever. He understood something our culture has completely forgotten. Happiness isn't a destination you reach in the future, it's a skill you practice in the present. The Greek philosopher wasn't talking about excessive or irresponsible pleasures. He was talking about the simple capacity to be present for life's small pleasures. The taste of a fruit, the breeze on your skin, an interesting conversation, a moment of silence, pleasures that are available now that don't depend on money, status, or anyone's approval. But we live in a culture that has hijacked our present. We were taught to always be somewhere else mentally, planning the next step, worried about the next deadline, dreaming about the next vacation, anxious about the next achievement. When was the last time you were totally present in something you were doing? Epicurus realized that the greatest source of human suffering isn't external circumstances, but our inability to inhabit the present moment. You can be in the most beautiful place in the world, but if your mind is worried about tomorrow's work, you're not really there. You can be with the people you love most, but if you're thinking about all the things you need to do later, you miss the encounter. Epicurean philosophy isn't about being irresponsible or ignoring the future. It's about understanding that the future is built by a sequence of conscious presence. If you don't know how to live the present well, you won't know how to live the future well when it arrives. The person who spends their entire life postponing happiness doesn't develop the capacity to be happy. Think about how you shower. Do you feel the water on your skin, the smell of soap, the simple pleasure of being clean? Or are you planning your day going over worries completely absent from the experience? This simple example reveals how we've lost our capacity to inhabit our own senses. Epicurus teaches us that freedom isn't in having more money to buy more things in the future. Freedom is in realizing that you already have access to the most genuine pleasures of existence. Breathing consciously, observing nature, talking with those you love, creating something with your own hands, simply being alive and present. There's a moment in many people's lives that feels both freeing and frightening. The moment you realize you've spent years, maybe even decades, living someone else's version of your life. It's like waking from a dream, only to see how much time slipped away while you were asleep. This awakening can come in many forms. A health scare that reveals how much you've neglected yourself. The loss of a loved one prompting you to reconsider how you spend your time. Or simply a quiet moment when you ask yourself, is this really it? Is this how I want to live? The pain of this realization runs deep. You see all the chances you missed, the words left unsaid, the dreams you gave up on, and the countless moments spent on autopilot. It's like tracing a path littered with lost possibilities. The hardest question is, why did I wait so long? Many people get stuck here. They feel it's too late to change, that they've invested too much time down the wrong path, or that starting over isn't worth it. I'm already this age, they say. I can't do certain things anymore. I've built a life. People will think it's strange if I change now. But here is a truth that can either hurt or liberate you. It is never too late to start living authentically, and it is never too early either. The perfect moment to be yourself has always been right now. Not after retirement, not when conditions improve, not when you feel ready. Today. This awakening may be painful, but it's also a gift. Many people never reach it. They live and die without ever questioning their path or waking up to who they might have been. If you're reading this and feeling a stirring inside, a restlessness, a hunger for change, congratulations. You're waking up. The real question isn't why did it take me so long, but now that I'm awake, what will I do with this awareness? You can let this awakening become an excuse to mourn lost time, or you can turn it into fuel to live fully from this moment forward. Philosopher Albert Camus talked about revolt, not a violent rebellion, but a conscious revolt against life's absurdity. It's the brave choice to live fully, even though life offers no guarantees. The future is uncertain, and plans can fall apart. Choosing to live now is a revolt against a culture that tells us to keep postponing life. It's saying no to the invisible script that tells us happiness must be earned through suffering. It's claiming responsibility for your life, not treating it as a reward to be won someday. This conscious revolt doesn't mean shirking your responsibilities. It means refusing to use them as reasons not to live fully. It means finding ways to be true to yourself within your current circumstances. It means remembering you always have choices, even when it feels like you don't. You can choose patience over anger in traffic, kindness over harshness toward others, connection over distraction in your free time, seeing your work as growth rather than prison. Conscious revolt is waking up every day and asking, how can I be more myself today, instead of how can I be more productive today? It's choosing presence over absence, authenticity over conformity, living fully instead of merely surviving. Here's the stark truth. No one will give you permission to live your life. No one will tell you when it's the right time to be happy. No one can guarantee the future will be better than today. The only certainty you have is this moment and your power to decide who you'll be in it. Retirement may come or it may not, but your life is happening right now. So the question is, are you truly living it or just waiting for it to begin? If you found this meaningful, check out the exclusive content linked in the first pinned comment. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next video.